Don't draw your ear on something else too.
But we that's downstairs.
Yeah.
Mark, I feel like I never talked to you anymore. It's weird.
Sorry, my stuff is kind of sliding around.
In your future. Or no, it's not like
How are you?
I'm good.
Just a minute before the meeting is on start.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Oh, okay.
Refresh my memory on the public hearings. I open them, they discuss, we close it, and then
Later.
Correct.
Yep.
It's the opposite of how we do the others.
Yep, we open. We then request close
Right.
and then vote on.
Awesome.
It's just the opposite of how we did the resolution.
All right. Thank you, sir. That's what I thought. I just sure I did get that screwed up.
Nope. They was gone. Oh, wow. They ruled out my heart and they ruled out a board call. So,
yeah, it was very helpful. I think he'd like to actually come back into the work session because I thought we've actually approved a lot of these packages. I've really improved the the final decision to approve the actual bond will be done at another time. I didn't understand it that way.
I thought this was.
See, I thought that they were actually approving each one of those tonight, but he says, no, you're approving these.
Authorizing these issuances.
Well, so it's
final vote. It comes back before the council. That just kind of proceeds with going to the market and getting the rates and all of those things. So they continue the process, but it's not the final decision.
That's what he explained.
Yeah, once the numbers come back and you know what the interest rates and everything else and the total income, that's when they have to make the official.
I brought.
So it comes back again.
Here, I
Already told her.
Okay.
You go back to.
Ready to go?
oh my God.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the city council meeting. If everybody would rise, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the council meeting to order, and Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway. Here. Councilmember McIntyre.
Here.
Councilmember Hull.
Here.
Councilmember Pope.
Here.
Councilmember Rowe.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Items on the consent agenda. Minutes from regular meeting number 7 on February 15th, 2022, as presented. Acknowledge January financial statement and payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. Approve the appointment of Will Heckert to the position of Equipment Operator Traffic on or about March 13th, 2022. Approve the appointment of Jason Guyette to the position of Operator at the Water Pollution Control Facility on or about March 13th, 2022. Civil Service Commission eligibility list for February 23rd, 2022, Building Inspector entrance and Utility Worker various entrance. Resolution number 54, 2022, approving the contract bonds and certificate of insurance for the Cooper Avenue Reconstruction Project, Main Street to 2nd Street. Resolution number 55, 2022, approving the contract bonds and certificate of insurance for the Lillian Street Reconstruction Project, Mary Street to Williams Street. Resolution number 59, 2022, setting March 15th, 2022 as the date of a public hearing for the purpose of considering a 10-year renewal of lease agreement between the City of Ottumwa and the U.S. Department of Transportation, FAA. Resolution number 62, 2022, setting March 15th, 2022 as the date of a public hearing on the disposition of a city-owned vacant lot located at 817 Chester Avenue. Resolution number 63, 2022, setting March 15th, 2022 as the date of a public hearing on the proposed adoption of the 2022-2023 annual budget for the City of Ottumwa, Iowa. Beer and/or liquor applications for Coffee Foe 77 at 1111 Quincy Avenue, number 109 and 107. All applications pending final inspections.
Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Now we need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I motion to approve the agenda as presented with the removal of item H5.
I second.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is the city administrator's report. So Phil, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Mayor. So the first item we have on the agenda tonight is a presentation from the Bridgeview Center, Inc. Board of Directors. And this is they're going to present the 2021 annual report and then a presentation from that board to the city. And so I don't know if Scott Hallgren was going to do that, or Jamie Scott, the president, or both of you.
Hi, thank you very much. On behalf of the board, we would like to present this year's 2021-22 check for $200,000 to the city. We began giving in March of 2009, and up to date, there has been $1.58 million contributed since 2009. I know COVID was a hard year, so hopefully this $200,000 helps. Do you have anything else?
Thank you.
We're very appreciative. And it's my understanding this is the largest single donation that the Bridgeview Board has given to date to the city. So we really are very appreciative.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Yes, we will. We'll get that deposited. Thank you. Let's see. Next up on here is an update on the American Recovery Plan Act requests. And so by the end of the month, we need to have these all finalized, which may require a work session or a finalization. I know at the next meeting on the 15th, we have, well, I guess I'll back up. We've received over $10 million worth of requests, at least items that have been itemized and dollars put to them. There are a number of other requests that do not have dollar amounts attached. And so you can think at least $10 million has been requested, and the city has received $3.6 million over the next 2 years. So we have much more requests than dollars available. We had some of those requests have been internal from staff, some came from the public, and we will have at our next meeting, one or two of those individuals will be present to answer any questions and make a short presentation. But tonight we do have TJ Heller here, who is representing the request for the indoor sports complex. If you've seen the paper, the county has contributed dollars towards that project. I think they're maybe using their ARPA funds for that. The school district has agreed to contribute funds, as well as Legacy and JBS. And I believe they are actively out campaigning for additional fundraising and have made an official request to the city, which I will turn over to TJ Heller to explain and ask for his request here.
Well, first off, appreciate the opportunity to sit here and share a little bit about what we're doing with the Southeast Iowa Sports Commission and the Indoor Sports Complex. Again, my name is TJ Heller. I'm the chair for the Southeast Iowa Sports Commission. It's a nonprofit 501c3. Essentially, Phil did a nice recap of the support we've already garnered. We've garnered over $6 million, almost $7 million now in support for this project. This project's about a $9 million project. We've done, this is not something we just whipped together overnight. This has been a long road. There's been a lot of due diligence that's been behind this, from feasibility studies to performance studies to going out, talking to the citizens of Ottumwa and the greater Ottumwa area. We are now at the point now to where we have an official ask to the city of Ottumwa. That ask includes $500,000 to take care of the site work, which is essentially utility and dirt work to prepare the site to build on, and to lease the land in Sycamore Park to us for $1 a year for 100 years, which is adjacent to the beach at Ottumwa. That is our official request, and I just want to say that I think a lot of individuals here I've spoken with, or at least familiar with this project. We've really done a lot in terms of one, from a sustainability piece. I know that anytime that you have a big project of this nature, there's obviously going to be some apprehension as far as, well, how do you know it's going to work? How do you know this is going to happen? From a sustainability standpoint, we've done our due diligence. We don't bill until it's paid off. We have no debt service on this. 2, we're a nonprofit. There's no property taxes on this. 3, we have I guess I can't share it yet, but we have a tenant that has rentable income that's coming into the facility that was not part of the original plan. We've actually included that out. 4, we have a commitment of $750,000 from the school district that we're going to use over 20 years. That's not part of the building process. So that's steady income over the next 20 years. And then from that standpoint, I think I'm excited to say that whatever roadblock or question that's come our way, we've been able to do our due diligence the right way and make sure that we've answered it and taken care of the problem. But I'm excited about the project. Like I said, it's been going on over 2 years now, and so I'm here today to provide my formal request, and would take any questions if there are any.
I have some questions. So I had reached out to Norm Gill with the agency that I think that you're working with. And so in his response to me, he had identified that the facility will not be paying property taxes. Can you explain more on that?
We're a nonprofit. Nonprofit 501c3s don't pay property taxes.
Okay. And then also, so he also I had asked about like how you would be sustainable, where would the funds come, especially if I don't know if he said it today, but when we talked, fees for community members to use would be pretty low. I think just very low. And so again, just sustainability. So he had identified that, let me get to it right, that it will be generate revenue from running the majority of programming internally, like leagues, instructional programs, camps, and tournaments, than simply like renting space for local sports clubs. So do you know what those costs are going to be, and how will you get those leagues? What will that instructional programming look like, those camps, tournaments? Who's going to be organizing that?
No, good question. So the facility will employ 2 full-time people. One is a operations manager who, to your point, oversees everything you just asked about, Kara. And the second piece is that we actually employ a full-time marketing manager. This individual actually lines up the tournaments, lines up the leagues. And then as a board, our board will help determine what those fees look like. To be honest with you, we're not quite at that stage to be, I'm getting in the weeds a little bit, and we're not at the stage to say, this is exactly what this legal cost, and that's exactly what this legal cost. But it is our intent, when you don't have any overhead, when you have you're going into a facility that's paid off. We have two salaries that we have to take care of in utilities. And a lot of that's taken up through rental income that we have through a tenant. And then just through our weekend tournaments are huge. A matter of fact, this really is a quality of life initiative, but there's actually an economic development component that not only benefits the facility itself, but also the citizens of Ottumwa and small business.
So one other question too. So I heard you say 2 staff. So what about I think there's a concession stand in there. Will there be other staff, like part-time staff there too? Or do you mean 2 staff completely?
So there's 2 full-time, then we have part-time as well. I didn't go into the part-time, but we'll have part-timers for refereeing, for concessions, things of that nature.
Thank you.
And will those that are employed come from the community?
Absolutely. They need to be. So, yeah, good question.
So in your projections, what's from the $9 million that you have projected out for the startup cost? I'm assuming that has operating cash flows. How far is that cash flow going out? Is that 1 year, 2 years? And is there a backstop in place just in case your revenue doesn't meet your expectations?
Yeah, great question. So the performance shows us actually losing money the first 3 years. The $9 million isn't to build the facility. It takes about 7.5 to maybe to 8 to build it. The other $1.5 million is for what you just mentioned, Mark. We're going to subsidize the first 3 years because the performance shows a loss the first 3 years of about a couple $100,000, I want to say. And so we have that subsidized. The second piece is we have a maintenance fund of $500,000. We have operating funds of about $250,000. And then we're actually paying for a professional consulting team who operate these facilities on a regular basis. We're paying them a fee to come and run the facility for us and train our folks up the right way from day one. So that's all built into that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, one last question. And this was asked at the supervisor meeting too, but I'm just going to ask it again. So what happens if this, I mean, this is a nonprofit, but it's also a business. So what happens if it fails? I mean, then what?
So as a nonprofit, then you have, there's going to be a lucky person who gets an $8 million building for pennies on the dollar. So, I mean, again, you can't say, I mean, we can't say that this government here could fail tomorrow. You might run out of money. So there's an inherent risk in any business, no matter whether it's a nonprofit, no matter if it's McDonald's down the road. There's an inherent risk to any business that you run. And the only thing you can do is make sure you do your due diligence and address those issues up front like we have.
Thank you.
I have one comment. I know when you and I met for coffee, I think the only thing that I may have not really disagreed, but thought differently on is I think it's going to hurt the YM. Not that I'm against this project, because anything new, that's where people are going to flock to. And I know the Y has been hurting financially for a number of years now. But that's just an insight of my opinion. The other thing that just left my mind, I don't know about 100-year lease, because let's say that it's in business and does really good for 25 or even 50 years. Well, then whoever's running that organization at that time, they still have that city property at that time for 50 more years or whatever the case may be. So I would probably entertain to think a little bit different on the 100-year lease.
I can address both those concerns as well, Doug. The first one, going back to the YMCA. So I wish Garrett was here right now, but Garrett was at our opening. We've spoken with the Y through this process. A lot of people, and this is really more of an education point. What the sports complex is more of from a sports tourism standpoint compared to what a general recreational facility is at the YMCA. If you want to go swim and lift weights, you're not coming to our place to do that. Part of our agreement with the Y, because it's really in cooperation, is if the Y wants us to help expand some of the programs they already have, they're landlocked. So if they want to expand a Zumba class, they come to us to help expand that. So we're actually working together, not necessarily competing against one another. Matter of fact, one of the talking points to our agreement was the Y does really good with aerobic equipment. That's what draws a lot of their members to their facility. We don't have that, and we're not going to do that because that would hurt the Y. So we've already had discussions with the Y on what would hurt them and what wouldn't, and so we've already sort of, again, going back to that due diligence piece, making sure we're both on the same page because we're here to help both of one another, not to compete like that. And so those pieces have been addressed. The second piece in regards to a lease, it is very common in leases that if something does not work out, there's amendments built into that lease saying, hey, it goes back to the city or it goes back to this. So that can all be worked out in the lease as well, Doug.
All right, thank you.
And this has the ability to expand, correct?
Yes.
So I just go back to your ask. So your ask was $500,000 plus site work plus the lease, correct?
That's correct.
Do you know what the estimate of the cost of the site work would be?
Well, in my formal email for the ask, I asked to get with where's the subject matter expert at, Larry here, to sort of sit down prior to any formal questioning, you really get his feedback on what that looks like, and I could bring Larry involved with it. I hate to give you a number, Russ, because I'm afraid that I'd be speculating.
You guys haven't got that far on it yet.
Correct.
Okay.
That's a conversation we'll have to finalize.
Yep, that's fine. Thank you.
Brian, I think Brian would like to say, if it's okay with the council, I think Brian Morgan would like to say a few words.
Anybody have any other questions for TJ? Thank you, TJ.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And County Commissioner Brian Morgan.
Supervisor.
County Supervisor. Sorry about
Commissioner
that.
in Wisconsin.
Sorry about that.
I am on the Southeast Iowa Sports Commission Board, and I think I'd just like to speak tonight as three people. So if you want to put me down, 2633 Meadowdale, Brian Morgan. Number one, I am here as a county supervisor and a member of the Southeast Iowa Sports Commission. As a county, we did vote to fund up to $2.5 million for this project. One thing we looked at when we got the ARPA funds was how can we take this money and make this money grow? You know, there's a lot of things. Never, probably ever before, have we ever been able to do something like that. So how can we get an ROI on our funds, on this money? So things like the windows of the courthouse is a project that we're looking at now. Very obvious. I mean, look at those windows are 50 plus years old. The money we're going to save just in efficiency is going to be a pretty good ROI. It's going to be a pretty good price tag on the windows too. The broadband infrastructure throughout the county is definitely going to help promote investment in the county. And this facility will help grow our lost fund, our local option sales tax. So the money we're putting in this and the money that it's bringing back in is something that we can see it doing something for us, for our whole community in Southeast Iowa. And the city stands to gain even more because you're going to get that same local option tax. Plus, we want to put heads in beds as the chair, president, whatever of Meet Ottumwa. That's our biggest goal, is getting people here in town to spend the night. The longer they're here, the more they spend. Number two, I'm here as a citizen. The first meeting I went to for any type of facility like this was in 2002, and it was down on Gateway at the city garage. And at that time, it was because we had the possibility of a casino coming in. Now, that's been 20 years ago. 20 years ago this year that we started talking about this, about anything along these lines. This ain't the first time that something's come up. This is the farthest we've ever gotten with it because it always gets bogged down. It always gets bogged down in the what ifs and the whatever it is. And that's caused us to fall farther and farther behind in the sports tourism sector. Lastly, I'm here probably most importantly as a father. A parent, like so many other people in this community and people behind me, people that was here earlier. I've been that person, wake our kids up at 6 o'clock in the morning to hit up 163 or up 218, across 34 or down 63 to go to a tournament somewhere else. Deciding whether it's worth spending the night, driving home that night, or just getting a hotel room because we got to play again at 8 o'clock the next morning. Filling up the gas tank before we leave here and taking my money out of town. Every Sunday in Indianola, we went. Williamsburg, we got people that are taking their kids every week, a couple times a week up to Williamsburg to work out for basketball. Not me, but it is happening. And it's just a pile of money leaving this town. I say all that to say this. When Brad Little came here with Legacy, they developed a plan. And that plan, I would say, in the first couple years really kind of started changing because the insight from the citizens of Ottumwa and the different groups says we need some type of sports recreation in town. So I think Legacy's contribution of $2 million the biggest contribution they've made to date. And that's 10 years they've been here now, 11 years they've been here. I think that really speaks to their mission and seeing the goal of bringing those dollars into our town. Starting with this, let's get into the Greater Ottumwa Park, develop these ball fields. We have the opportunity. We have some great areas here, and the possibilities for things like this, I believe, are endless. And I can stand here all day and preach to you about it's for the kids. It is. Ottumwa deserves this. We do. Yada, yada, yada. It's all the same. And don't get offended. I'm not talking to any of you on this, but Bill Clinton's campaign in 1992 had a slogan. It's the economy, stupid. This facility is about the economy. I've sat up there when Kohl's come to town and we've given them a 20-year tax break to come build here, economic development. We've got a hotel going at Bridgeview, economic development. Good things, good synergies coming in. Hobby Lobby, hundreds of thousands of dollars we put into Hobby Lobby, economic development. These facilities right here that we're talking about are the new backbones of rural America. There's not many economic drivers anymore bigger than what we're talking about here today. Could the facility be bigger? We would love it to be bigger, but first and foremost, it's got to make money. So this is what brings families to town nowadays. It's the activities for the kids. We follow our kids. Similar to the beach where you pull through the parking lot, see all the out-of-county cars. This facility will provide the same feel, hopefully even more, because we want to get those overnight stays. Unlike the beach, though, this facility has to be ran as a private business, so the stressors of the finances are not on you. It's on us. So as a citizen, a father, a county supervisor, thank you for your time. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them as well.
I don't have any questions, but I do agree with a lot that you're saying. I have a young child, and I mean, luckily her gym's here, but if she grows, and I don't want to travel, I want it to be here.
Absolutely.
I want people to come here. And I think that even for her, when we have tournaments or competitions, we go elsewhere because we don't have a lot of space here. So I do appreciate it. I also think it's our job, as you know, to do our due diligence and ask the questions.
Absolutely, 100%. And you brought up, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Don't yell at me.
No, I'm done.
You brought up something that is so stupid to me, but it'll bring people in. The Harry Potter game, the
Quibbage?
Quibbage. Do you know what Quibbage is? Okay.
Hey, that's not stupid.
I had no idea what Quibbage was. It's a dodgeball or lacrosse on a broomstick, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Essentially.
But I mean, there's so many possibilities, as we can say, and I'll shut up. But as we say, we can stand here for all day, and I can throw out possibilities of different things. And there's a certain group of the population that are huge Harry Potter people, and they will come. People will come and I think that's what, TJ said, is having this full-time person to get in there and develop these things. And something Kelly Jenners had asked me when we were at Legacy was, if we can get this outdoor piece rolling, can our people help with the tournaments and do that stuff? And, my response is absolutely yes. Now we're going to take some of the cut of that. I mean, that helps us, our solvency, but the biggest thing is we can stand here all day and I could blow smoke and tell you what this is going to do and what this is going to do. Unless you have someone doing that programming and getting that stuff in, I'm lying to you. It's just not coming. And that's our number one thing. We have to put people in the building, and our money time is going to be that Friday night to Sunday afternoon. And that's where the rest of Ottumwa and Wapello County grows as well. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. And I definitely agree with what's been said. This project is definitely another new economic development opportunity for Ottumwa that we really need to capture. It's going to have a lot of benefit to the city and make it a quality of life issue. And there's just a whole lot of positive things tied to this project. So I want to publicly thank all of you for your hard work in putting this together, because I know it's been a lot of work to try and envision and design a sports complex for Ottumwa. So kudos to you and your staff for the great work you've done so far.
All right. And so there's no expectation to vote on this tonight. Like I said, it'll be coming up, and there are some other individuals that will be speaking on answering any questions you have, future requests. Some of the items that were in the ARPA list do cross over into the bonding requests that are up later. So there's 2 opportunities to fund some of these opportunities that'll be before you. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. Moving on, though, looking at the next item is an annual review on the state of the city. So I guess in a little bit here, you'll have the State of the Union address from the president and the counter from our governor. And so along similar routes and just kind of in coordination with my time of working here, which is February 17th is my anniversary date. It just kind of became a thing where coincidentally the timing of that worked out where I'd kind of take a look back at the prior year and give some insights into things as far as from my perspective. And so with that, I'll say that another year has passed, and much like the elected officials sitting before you here tonight, the city of Ottumwa has seen significant change. I am pleased to report the revisions have been overwhelmingly positive, and I'd like to take a moment to report on just several of those areas across the city. Not as positive necessarily, but like many employers across the city and the nation, staffing levels are a concern. A report was provided at the last meeting indicating the city was averaging less than 4 applicants per vacancy. Additionally, we have an aging workforce with an abundance of institutional knowledge at risk. It is becoming critical the city continue to hire quality staff to maintain and provide a high level of services. Recently, the City Council approved requests for soliciting a compensation study and an increased staffing of 3 firefighter positions cut from the budget a couple of years ago. These are positive steps. However, looking back over the past 10 years, the city has reduced staffing by 50 positions. This has led to a reduction of services and placed a lot of pressure on current staff to maintain a quality level of other offered services. Those decisions were made due to financial pressures and a shrinking valuation of the city. When a city is facing a budgetary crisis, such as Ottumwa has, there are typically 2 ways to resolve that issue. One avenue is through reducing public expenditure, making difficult budgetary decisions, such as reduced staffing, as done in the past fiscal cycles. The other is through growth and building a tax base, either through new development or building improvements. That process, however, can take years, sometimes even decades, to have an impact on a growing sustainable valuation. On the positive, fortunately, the city has begun to experience some success in this area. When the current census numbers were reported, there was an increased population over the prior 10-year period, and our total assessed valuation is also increasing. And over the past couple years, the city has been able to decrease the tax rate. And that has been the result of budget cuts, one-time revenues, restructuring benefits, and a noted increase in valuation. Looking ahead, the city should see a continued increase in valuation with the recently approved Bonita Avenue project, which is going to produce over 100 new housing units. Additionally, a recent housing study report funded by Legacy Foundation led to the establishment of Mission 500, an organization with the objective of creating 500 new homes over the next 10 years. Also, community partners such as Indian Hills and Ottumwa School District are adding to the creation of new homes through their construction programs. These investments in the community are crucial to sustain growth. The fiscal challenges of the past have highlighted a need for additional sustainable revenue sources. Now, later tonight and over the next few months, the City Council will be asked to continue to invest in the city through the bonding request before you tonight, adoption of the city budget at the next meeting, and a consideration of implementing franchise fees in the future. Voting in favor of additional debt service, taxes, and fees is by no means an easy decision. These decisions have real-world impacts in the lives of citizens and business owners. At the same time, they're an investment into the future of the city, a future focused on fiscal sustainability, improved capital infrastructure, and enhanced quality of life attributes. I'd like to thank city staff for their everyday efforts in providing quality services to the community. I would also like to thank the past City Council for their previous votes to put the city on its current road to recovery. Finally, I would like to thank the current City Council for their decision to seek elected office, for their curiosity and inquiries, for their passion for the best interests of the city, and for their commitment to addressing the choices ahead. My philosophy is to strive for continuous improvement, to always look for the great above the good. and the people of Ottumwa deserve nothing less than the best. There are many great things which have occurred over the past year, and I am excited to see how the fruits of these labors produce for years to come. Thank you.
Well stated. Anybody have any comments or questions for Phil? Okay, thank you, Phil. Do you have anything else?
Nope, not under that report.
Okay, this is a part of the council meeting where I'd like to ask if we have any citizens who desire to comment on any of the agenda items on our agenda tonight. If hearing none, we'll go ahead and continue to proceed.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of notes not to exceed $3,300,000 to evidence the obligation of the city thereunder.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and I believe we have 8 of these tonight, and I believe Phil's going to do the presentations on each one of them, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, so I guess maybe to start off, and I can go into more detail on each of these individually, but as you said, there's 8 of these, and they each have their own limitations and their own requirements within there. However, all of them grouped together in the end for the potential of one bond that we're looking to have the council consider moving forward. And again, just for clarification, a vote in favor tonight does not mean that you are obligating the city to that debt service at this time. It is only continuing forward in the process. It would be moving forward with obtaining a rate structure and seeing what kind of interest is out there in the market to actually sell these bonds. There will be a future opportunity once that information is provided for the council to vote up or down on actually executing that issuance. We do have Tim Oswald from Piper Sandler here tonight. I'm going to call him up in just a moment to give one of your overview of the process and what we're looking at, and then we can go into each of these as far as that public hearing goes. I'm just going to say real quickly, and I think he can get into the details as far as the debt limits that the city is under and what this would mean in terms of all of that. In general terms, though, I want to say that there are generally 2 philosophies as far as when you're looking at taking out debt service and how we pay for, as a city, how we pay for large ticket items. If you're talking about a street project, you're talking about something like a fire truck, where the use of that spans over, in some cases, decades. There's a philosophy where in many of our households, we may use a pay-as-you-go philosophy, where we continue to set money aside and save it. And once we have saved enough, we go out and make that purchase. That is definitely one philosophy. Take something like a fire truck that might be $1 million. If you were looking at that, useful life of 20 years, you set aside $50,000 a year for those 20 years. And at the end of year 20, you go out and you purchase that fire truck, and then you continue to use it for the next 20 years and start saving for that next one. That is one philosophy. There are pros and cons to that. Then there's a pay-as-you-use. And that would be more so that you go out and you obligate some amount of debt service. And then as you enjoy the use of that fire truck in this case, those are the people that end up paying for it. Again, that's another philosophy. Neither one is more right or wrong than the other. It comes down to what you can afford and what the interests of the community ends up being. So those are some things just to think about as we move forward. And with that, I guess I'll ask Tim to come up and address the council and take any general questions, and then we'll continue into each of these.
Thank you. So you have 8 different items in front of you, and they largely come because the statute specifies how bonds can be authorized. And there are parts of the city code that talk about what are called essential purposes and parts that talk about what are general purposes. In the general purpose, there's a maximum amount that can be borrowed per project. So not total per bond issue, but per project. So what you have are 2 essential and 6 general purpose hearings. The general purpose hearings, the max is 700,000. And the essential, there is no max. At this time, the city has about 29 million of outstanding debt. You have a statutory limit of plus or minus 60 million. You're talking about adding let's say up to 8 million of debt to it. And you're talking about, with the structure that we're looking at, you'll retire 3.5 of that 8 next year. And then you already retire about 3 million a year of your prior debts. So you're adding 8, but you're going to retire, let's call it plus or minus 6 million next year. So you're not really net, we're not adding that much. Doing okay so far? Okay. I trust you'll interrupt me if you want to ask a question or make a comment. In terms of what's next, so the action item tonight is to hold the hearing, allow the public to tell you why whatever they think, close the hearing, and then there's a resolution that follows it. And I wanted to clarify that resolution does not say you're going to borrow the money. The resolution says that you're instituting a proceeding, and so it's a resolution of intent. You intend to borrow the money. And that's important because the statute requires that after you hold a hearing, you either adopt a resolution of intent or you abandon the hearing, at which point you'd have to start all over. And I don't think it's not our intent, and I don't think it's yours to start the hearing process over. But I did want to stress that in terms of actually saying, all right, we're going to borrow for this, this, and this, the actions you're taking tonight do not do that. Is that clear for everybody? Any questions about that? The actions you're taking tonight are intended to allow you to include the bond issue and the payment of the bond in the budget. And that's the primary reason that we're here tonight, since you have to publish the budget and get it adopted at your next meeting. So with that, in terms of what happens next, the timeline as to when you sell bonds and for what purposes is in your hands. And you'll tell us how fast and what you want to do and when you want to do it. So maybe I'll shut up for a minute and let you ask any questions.
I just like to make a comment, Tim. I really, really appreciate the time I was able to spend with you today, and you explained things that I had no idea. If you wouldn't have been here, I'm still under the impression we was go vote on this tonight. So I appreciate your wisdom and listening to me on how I view money. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
And I guess I just have a comment from sitting down and meeting with you too. I too appreciate you coming early so we could sit down and have conversations with you. I would also like, depending on how the votes go tonight too, have him come back and do a work session for us to understand, just the bonding process more before we, again, depending how tonight goes, formally decide to like actually buy or sell. Am I saying that right? The bonds?
Sell.
Thank you.
And I guess I'd just like to make some general comments because this seems to be an issue every year when we talk about bonds and borrowing capacity for the city. So I want to speak a little bit as a council person and as a career accountant for just a second. And there seems to be, and Phil had mentioned this a little bit earlier, the philosophy that we should just save our money to pay for the things that we need. And for personal finances, that makes perfect sense. You should save for the things that you need. But when you start talking about multi-million-dollar budgets for companies, for governmental agencies, a certain load of debt actually is healthy for the organization. You look at the city of Ottumwa, for example. We're capped on our tax levies currently. So one of the things that, from a council perspective, that we hear constantly, we need road repair, we need equipment for our police officers, we need equipment for our firefighters, our buildings are falling apart. Whatever that topic du jour is, We hear all of this stuff. Well, and I would agree, we do need a lot of that stuff, but our property tax rates are capped. Our valuation is not on the rise the way our current housing market is. So we're not seeing a whole lot of retail growth in this area. So if we want to have roads, if we want to have updated buildings, if we want our police officers to have the equipment that'll protect them and protect the city, if we want to have equipment at our parks, there's an option. If we want to save for it, that's fine, but we're going to be saving for the next 75, 100 years to make that happen. Or we take out a bond for it and we work smart and we get the lowest interest rates that we can. And at some point down the road, we might have to renegotiate those. From a council perspective also, I would say there are things that I know Director of Public Works Seals has been talking about for years now. We're under an EPA mandate. That isn't something that, granted, socially speaking, we want to do, but there's also the federal government behind us saying, you will do this. And if we don't take care of it, they'll take care of it for us and we will be paying for it. And I'm sure it won't be the same price tag that we can do it ourselves. So again, we can take care of that over the next 75 or 100 years. But the EPA isn't allowing that. They've got a certain time, 2036, is that the right number that I'm looking at? And we're not going to do that with the money in our pockets. So just something for the public to think about. We can't cut our way to make things, to make the things happen in this community happen the way that they need to happen. A lane mile costs, what, $1.5 million roughly by the time you do all the R&D for it and all the work. So that $1.5 million cuts probably a good percentage of your police force or your fire department out. So, we bond or we cut something. I hate to be that drastic about it, but the truth is the truth. We have to borrow money to make some of this stuff happen. There's no way around it. And again, to his point, we are actually in a pretty good position as far as our bonding capacity right now. We look at $8.5 million. We lose $6 million of it next year. We're doing pretty good compared to other cities. And I would challenge anybody to look across this nation and find a community that's working 100% debt free, because I don't think you're going to find it.
Well, and just to clarify too, the way that you have it worked out too is that if we continue to bond in the future, then we pay it off too, correct? And like within the year?
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you mentioned earlier, not tonight yet, but when we were talking about how the state of Iowa works and the need to have to borrow something, to Councilman Rowe's point here, as far as doing some of these projects, as a municipality, we almost have no choice. Now, even if we pay it off in the same year, it's still the mechanism we need to. You would speak to that real quick?
Sure. So remember, you can levy taxes for operational purposes and pay your employee benefits and things like that. And you do that inside the general fund or in the outside of the general fund. But that doesn't give you any meaningful money for capital items. The statute only gives you two options for capital. One is to vote a capital levy, which is a 67-cent tax. And I don't want to downplay it too much, but it wouldn't do much in this case for the city. And the other is to sell bonds. That's really your only capital means to raise dollars to pay for larger projects or larger equipment. So you kind of have to live with that. And I'm going to joke and say, well, the statute was probably written by lawyers and finance people like myself. But anyway, so you have to do that. So to several of you have raised this kind of question about, well, how do we set up the bonds to minimize the cost to the city? And I think that's a worthy question. You have to set bonds to pay for, or just to pay a project. How do we keep the interest cost as low as possible? How do we keep our professional fees as low as we possibly can? And that's really the next step in the discussion, and a step that Kayla and I had started with some actions last year from last year's bond sale. And we're going to, I think, wrap up with this one such that future years you would be able to borrow and pay off the borrowing within the same year. So if you think about that impact, so yes, there's interest cost, but 1 year's interest cost relative to 20 years interest cost. Yes, there are fees, but we can probably keep those fees as low as possible because of the way that we would set up the borrowing. So I think it's wise for the council to care about that. And I think I want you to know that it's something that we've been talking about and want to implement so that we can keep that cost as low as possible. Does that make sense?
So while there is borrowing and debt service, it is done so with a plan and with foresight as far as what we're doing. Some of these things are equipment replacement, building maintenance repair, to things to that effect. Some of them are quality of life improvements to help to attract and maintain residents and businesses to the area. And some of them are straight up community or economic development benefits, whether it's through housing or economic development grants or other incentives. And so with that said, I guess I'll jump into the first one here. And this was the issue not to exceed 3.3 million of the general obligation capital loan notes. The specific items that were covered under this amount, I'm sorry, is there any questions more for Tim, or we can let him take a seat and he can respond to any direct
Thank you,
questions?
Tim.
Yep, thank you.
So the funding in question here is for the procurement of law enforcement vehicles, the dispatch software that was approved previously, that CAD, the computer aided dispatch, other equipment and cameras. I think the equipment is the vests, protective safety equipment. For the fire department, it is a fire engine or fire truck, fire apparatus, as was previously stated in other meetings. Community development, a nuisance eradication program. For parks, there's the tennis courts that was approved earlier this year. And in the airport is general improvements. I think it was dirt work, site work, and general building improvements. And then in public works, the sidewalk drop program, GPS system, and tree trimming. If there's other specific questions, staff can maybe answer any of those that you have direct about what those needs are for. Otherwise, I can try to answer them as well.
Does council have any questions? I guess I would like to ask the city clerk if she received any written objections.
I did not receive any objections to this item.
If there's no other questions or comments, I would ask for a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
And Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 41, 2022, instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed 3.3 million general obligation capital loan notes, ECP 1. Recommendation passed. Adopt resolution number 41, 2022.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of notes not to exceed $700,000 to evidence the obligation of the city thereunder.
I will go ahead and open the public hearing, and here again, Phil will lead this discussion.
Okay. So this is a little bit less amount that we're talking about. This is $700,000. This is also for, or I'm sorry, this one is for general corporate purposes. And it is more specifically looking at procurement for community development, roof and facade grant program, downtown development program, historic preservation plan, and an economic development grant. And if there are any more specific questions, I can address any of those, or Zach maybe, as most of these are in his wheelhouse.
Council have any questions? If not, I'd ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Oh, wait a second, I'm sorry. I need to,
I received no objections on this, Your Honor.
thank you. Okay, I'll ask for a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 42, 2022, instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed 700,000 general obligation capital loan notes, GCP2. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 42, 2022.
I move to approve the recommendation as presented.
Second.
I need to open the public hearing, don't I?
Nope. We're doing the resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I'll take the roll.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of notes not to exceed 700,000 to evidence the obligation of the city thereunder.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and here again, Phil will review this package.
Okay, this third item is more specifically for the procurement of community development. This is for potential property purchase, neighborhood development, and engineering for potential rail relocation project.
Any questions for Phil? If not, I'll ask the city clerk again if we had any written objections for this resolution.
I received no objections to this, Your Honor.
Okay, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 43, 2022, instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed 700,000 general obligation capital loan notes, GCP3. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 43, 2022.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the recommendation as presented.
Second? Those are us. Yep. Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Abstain.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of notes not to exceed 700,000 to evidence the obligation of the city thereunder.
I will open the public hearing, and Phil, this turn it to you again.
Okay, again, this is for the same amount of $700,000 general obligation capital loan notes for general corporate purpose. Specifics of this one is for a municipal property, more specifically, the City Hall HVAC system updates. I will state that the amount there is much more, but this is the level that we're able to borrow up to.
Any questions for Phil? If not, is there any written objections to this?
No, I have a question.
Okay.
Can you state that last, what did you say?
So this is a particular project. We're estimated costs were about $2.2 million for the HVAC repairs for this building. $700,000 is a legal threshold that we can borrow up against. And so that is the amount that was recommended for this particular borrowing. This is one of the items where it was also listed in the ARPA funds as a potential as well, or looking at grants, other things we could use to offset some of that cost. But at this moment, this would be a borrowing up to that $700,000 for the City Hall HVAC system updates.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, I'll ask the city clerk again if she received any written objections to this resolution.
I received no objections, Your Honor.
Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 44, 2022, instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed 700,000 general obligation capital loan notes, GCP4. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 44, 2022.
Move the recommendations presented.
Second.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of notes not to exceed $700,000 to evidence the obligation of the city thereunder.
I'll open the public hearing, and Phil will take this one also.
Okay. Again, this is also for the $700,000 general corporate purpose. And this is more specifically for municipal property, fire station improvements, maintenance to Beach Ottumwa, cemetery rental maintenance, that is the rental house, but cemetery, Bridgeview Center maintenance, and then municipal fleet, vehicles more specifically for building code and planning, and the parks departments.
Any questions for Phil? If not, I'll ask the city clerk if she received any written objections to this resolution.
I received no objections, Your Honor.
Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 45, 2022, instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed $700,000 general obligation capital loan notes, GCP 5. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 45, 2022.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of notes not to exceed $700,000 to evidence the obligation of the city thereunder.
I will open up the public hearing, and Phil.
Okay, only a few more. This again is $700,000 general corporate purpose. More specifically, it would be for the procurement of community of funding in the areas of community development, housing programs, and municipal fleet for airport vehicles, and finally technology, a record maintenance software system.
Any questions from council for Phil? If not, I would ask for a motion. Oh,
I received no objections, Your Honor.
thank you, Chris. I'll ask for a motion now to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 46, 2022, instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed $700,000 general obligation capital loan notes, GCP 6. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 46, 2022.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of notes not to exceed $700,000 to evidence the obligation of the city thereunder.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and Phil.
Okay. The last one for the 700,000, there is one more. And also general corporate purpose. And this is for, as we heard earlier tonight, in the area of parks, the indoor sports complex request.
Council have any questions or comments for Phil?
I do. If the request was only going to be for, as we heard, 500,000, why are we doing 700,000?
So the request was 500,000, we'll say cash, plus the cost of improvements, which we don't have the estimate on that yet. But this also is in general in the parks area. So this could be any other improvements within the parks that would qualify.
So
for
even
the
if we don't
bonding.
use the extra 200,000 on them, we can use it on something else.
As long as it's still within the same area that we were borrowing the funds for.
Okay, thank you.
We couldn't take this and put it towards like a vehicle necessarily or a street or whatever else, but
Right.
in park improvements, we would be able to do that.
Okay,
Correct?
thanks, Phil.
So are they asking for 700,000 plus the dirt work?
They're asking for 500,000 plus the dirt work and the sale or the lease of the land to them.
So this potential 200,000 could assist with the dirt work that,
Correct. This would be used towards the
Putting it
improvements, site improvements. That could be up to 200,000. If it's more than that, we'd have to find the funding for the balance.
And I'll ask the city clerk if she received any written objections to this resolution.
I received no objections, Your Honor.
Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 47, 2022, instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed 700,000 general obligation capital loan notes, GCP 7. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 47, 2022.
Move the recommendations presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of notes not to exceed 1.1 million to evidence the obligation of the city thereunder.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and I think this is Phil's final presentation.
This be the final public hearing part at least. And this is, so this is for $1.1 million. And this would be general obligation, urban renewal, capital loan notes. The difference here is this would be a TIF eligible project, which we could look to recover those funds to help pay off that debt service. So it's dollars that would not have to be levied to recover or reimburse those costs. This more specifically is, again, municipal property and the parking lot expansion for Bridgeview Center.
Hey, and Phil, to clarify too, this would be one of the essential projects because it can go over that, there's no limit.
Correct. Yeah. So this is the essential corporate purpose. That's why it is more than the 700,000. And this also has that urban renewal tag to it, which means that it's eligible to be recovered through tax increment financing. And that is obviously important so that if the funds are there, we can recover that. That is not levying an additional tax on the taxpayers to recover those funds and pay for this project.
Any other questions for Phil? One final time, I'll ask our city clerk if she received any written objections to this resolution.
I received no objections, Your Honor.
I would ask for a motion then to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 48, 2022, instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed 1.1 million general obligation urban renewal capital loan notes, ECP 8. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 48, 2022.
Do we have a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 49, 2022, authorizing the issuance of 8 million general obligation capital loan notes series 2022 and levying a tax for the payment thereof. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 49, 2022.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing approving the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Green Street Storm Sewer Improvements Project.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and I believe Larry Seals is going to take this one.
Thank you, Your Honor. For this project, I'm going to do a little background for the newest council member and the citizens of Ottumwa. During the past couple projects, that's not really going to show up very well. We added a new storm system on both of these projects, which recombined at the intersection of Green and Main. The project tonight is going to connect in and actually do the full separation, take it to the river. So that's kind of the background of how we got here. So this project will connect the newly installed storm systems and complete the backbone for future separations, which is this entire shaded area. So that'll allow us in future separations as we do sewer work to use this for the outfall area. As part of the design process, we had to work with Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. They've got a dual track system here. Through that 9-month process, they have some minimum requirements in the design to meet at least a minimum of 9 foot between the top of your casing and the bottom of the rail. This change also required the addition of 2 junction boxes because we had to reduce the size of the storm line to meet that minimum clearance requirement. So we have to go to dual pipes underneath the rails, dual 36 plus dual casings, which increased the cost of this project. These design requirements have increased the estimated cost to $930,000. Once completed, this project will allow us to discharge by gravity during rain events, but has the added feature of being able to backflow to the new storm pump station through the main box that follows the river all the way up through the gateway, and we'll go out that storm station we put in under the Phase 4 project. And that would be for high river flows where you're seeing 22 foot of flow and you can't discharge by gravity any longer. This project also includes the installation of a new larger water main that will allow for increased capacity and kind of a dual feed out to the east end for some of the major businesses. Bids will be received and opened by the City of Ottumwa on March 23rd, 2022 at 2 p.m. and a bid report and bid award recommendation will be presented at the City Council meeting on April 5th. I do have a real short video that I just wanted to show for the general public and yourself. Be the boring one. Not a boring video, but a construction of boring.
Thanks, Tim. Boring with an O.
This project is actually on the Phase 8 Division 1 project, and there'll be 3 of these processes that we have to do for the dual casings. They have to be separated to maintain a water line during construction, and then we also have to do the water line. So we'll have 3 separate bores. This one went quite well. You have to stay outside of the railroad right away, or you have to pay for a railroad flagman, which is slightly over $1,000 a day just to hire them. It's very unique in order to get them here and to keep them on site during the construction project. So it's far cheaper to extend your casings outside of the right of way for you don't have to deal with them during active construction stages. Part of this project, there'll be about $707,000. It's estimated to be the city's share of the cost, and somewhere around $223,000 for the water main extension, completion, boring, and connection, and new valve pit, and a few other things. Under normal circumstances, if you don't do the setback of 50 feet from the active rail, you'd have to stop all construction as a train comes by. Thought that was an interesting point, things that we have to deal with the general public wouldn't be aware of. And that's really the process. It just takes them about a week to push that through. They basically weld that casing. As they shove it through, there's an auger that pulls the dirt out. Each time it's a phase stepping process. They'll shove that 20-foot section, remove everything, add another casing, and start over again. It's an interesting process to watch. You can see kind of a set of rails in the bottom of that pit, the launch pit, and there's an equal receiving pit. And we have all these videos if you're interested.
I appreciate the videos and the pictures that you bring because just helps bring more.
It's very informational. I mean, a lot of people, you know, I was in the business quite a few years before I actually had one of these included in one of our jobs. It's a specialty. I mean, there's a few companies within the state that do it. That's the other issue. It's just scheduling for the contractor to get them here to do the actual work, and then just part of the construction world.
I'm also pleased to see how fast our city employees work.
He stole my thunder. I was going to say this.
It's amazing. They just did 24 hours in 5 minutes.
Any other questions for Larry from council?
So Larry, did you say if it's 50 foot from the rail that they have to stop the construction until the train goes by, or they don't have to?
If you're within that distance from the center of their rail.
Is that just in case that it caves in from the vibration, or?
That's part of it. You know, they watch that significantly. The other part, you have to survey that during the whole time, and there's very little track settlement allowance. We had one on McLean Street that become interesting because we actually had some track settlement. The space around the casing was too much, so it allowed that to settle as they were digging. So there's a lot of stuff going on in between trains, monitoring, tracking.
Okay.
The other big thing is they don't want the equipment close enough that somebody could swing a hoe into the front of a train. The derailment is what they fear.
They'd go a lot faster than what we've seen, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Larry? If not, I'll ask the city clerk if she received any written objections to this resolution.
I received no objections to this, Your Honor.
I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 52, 2022, approving the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Green Street Storm Sewer Improvements Project. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 52, 2022.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing approving the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Blake's Branch Phase 8 East of Iowa Avenue Sewer Separation Project.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and I believe Larry's going to take this one as well.
And again, I'm going to offer a visual map because this project consists of 5 sub-projects or smaller projects. And it completes the removal of intakes from the existing sanitary sewer system, basically like it describes it, east of Iowa, kind of around the Main Street area. I don't know how well that color doesn't show up the best. But you can see one of the subsections is down below, kind of in the Mabel area. That one's moving pretty fast. Again, fast works. Anyway, so we got 5 separate areas that we're basically pulling the storm intakes off of the sanitary. One area on 2nd Street, we're adding new storm line and sanitary. What we discovered, there are several laterals connected into the storm, which is considered an illicit discharge, and we have to remove that. So this takes care of that. At the same time, it also removes the rest of the storm out of the sanitary and the sanitary out of the storm in the Iowa Ave area, in the Haines Street area, and allows us to change one of the pump stations to a storm pumping station only. Right now, we have to operate it as a CSO bypass. We'll do some additional checks to make sure that everything is disconnected, and then we'll be able to truly eliminate one of the CSOs, which is the ultimate goal of our compliance schedule. Bids will be received and opened by the City of Ottumwa on March 9th, 2022 at 2 p.m. and a bid report and bid award recommendation will be presented at the council meeting on the 15th. And that's just kind of a replay. You can see where we go clear up basically to 4th along Van Buren. It has 2 small subsystems. And again, it just, this one's looped, but it's kind of scattered through the whole area in order to get all of the system. This one daylights the storm off of the sanitary. This is the new storm, and the new sanitary here discharges into this creek basin. These come this direction, ultimately comes over and ties into an existing storm that we built on Iowa Avenue several years ago. So a lot of our projects are phased and designed for future separation.
Council have any questions for Larry regarding this resolution?
I will add that the current construction estimate is $2,650,000. We do have $3 million budgeted for this project for inspection and the rest of the expenses.
I'll ask the city clerk if she received any written objections from the public regarding this resolution.
No objections were received, Your Honor.
I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing then.
So moved.
Chris will take the roll.
Okay, first I need,
A second.
thank you. Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 53, 2022, approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Blake's Branch Phase 8 East of Iowa Avenue Sewer Separation Project. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 53, 2022.
Do we have a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 6, 2022, approving change order number 1 and accepting the work as final and complete for the Marion Street Reconstruction Project. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 6, 2022.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll. Oh, I'm sorry. Larry, we need to hear from you.
That's okay.
I will get this down straight one of these days.
You're doing fantastic, Mayor.
That's what I think. Just as a recap, this project was a full width, full depth reconstruction of Marion, basically from 4th Street up to North Court. It included the replacement of all the utilities. It is complete, and we're recommending full payment. Change order 1 consists of an increase of $5,781.17 for quantity adjustments. The original contract was $735,723. The new contract total will be $741,504.17. Drish Construction of Fairfield, Iowa has completed the above reference work according to the plans and specifications, and this will authorize payment and release of all retainage.
There's no other questions. Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 51, 2022, awarding the contract for the Pawnee Drive Reconstruction Project to Jones Contracting Corporation of West Point, Iowa, in the amount of $1,176,777. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 51, 2022.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Larry, it's all yours.
This project, again, involves full width, full depth PCC reconstruction of Pawnee Drive from Foxack to the cul-de-sac. In addition, it has a small amount of storm that'll be replaced. The new road will be 31 foot wide by 2,195 feet in length. It is worth pointing out this street was originally installed in 1974, so it's exceeded most of your design lives, which is usually about 40 years for a street. Bids were received and opened by the city of Ottumwa on February 23rd, 2022 at 2 p.m. 2 bids were received, and the low bidder is Jones Contracting Corp. of West Point, Iowa, in the amount of $1,176,777. One of the things I wanted to show you was the condition of this street. You can see all of the decracking at all of the joints, which is pretty standard for pavement of this age. That also was the time period where they did not use a rock subbase, but they did what they called slab on grade. This is fairly typical of those type of designs. But again, it's already exceeded what you would expect for a standard PCC street if 40 years is your design life. One of the interesting things in the very first part of this was the drone flight. We was unaware of it, and this was created today by our drone pilot. There's a restricted airspace around a correctional home, and a few days back, we had actually applied for a waiver. We was unaware of it until he first tried to fly, and it basically just shut it down. So we had to resort to just the old original photos. But you can see overall, it's beyond any type of patch, beyond any type of overlay. If you put an overlay on that, you're just throwing your money away.
Do you remember what we originally budgeted for this?
The budgeted amount was $1,012,412. Any of the overrun was originally, the funding for the gap will be paid from road use.
How long does a project like this take?
We have 65 working days in it. One of the things that we want to do with the contractor is the logical phase will be, I think they want to start on the far end and do just part, and then we'll see where we're at in construction. So it'll be a 2-phase project, but 65 working days.
Thank you.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 56, 2022, approving change order number 1 and accepting the work as final and complete for the Forest Avenue flood wall project. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 56, 2022.
Do we have a motion?
Move the recommendations presented.
Second.
Larry?
This project constructed, I don't have any videos for you on this one.
Oh.
We run out of time. This project constructed a reinforced concrete flood wall along the east side of Forest Ave between the street and the drainage ditch. Ancillary work included pavement removal, excavation, dewatering, subdrain, and backfill. During the design and working with the Corps of Engineer, we were able to come up with a change after we went out for bidding where we could reduce the length of that by nearly half. So this change order consists of a decrease of $190,485.82 in the adjusted as-built quantities, just because we cut the project basically in half. The funding is from $500,000 that we put up with CIP. Iowa Bridge and Culvert of Washington, Iowa has completed the above reference work according to the plans and specs, and this will authorize final payment release of all retainage.
I'll just say, Larry, I'll take pictures and email them to everybody tomorrow for you.
We've got just some hard pictures. I was hoping we'd get a drone, but we just run out of time.
Should have said something. I was there all day today.
I'll remember that.
Could we also have them in color in the future?
Yeah, well, sound. Yeah, the drone had a slight landing problem when it went into that restricted area, so the color's off.
I'm just kidding.
It actually is off.
Okay, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 57, 2022, approving change order number 1 and accepting the work as final and complete for the Woodland Avenue reconstruction project. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 57, 2022.
Do we have a motion?
Move the recommendation is presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll. Oh, I'm sorry, Larry. One more time.
Again, this was another project that was a full width, full depth reconstruction, included sanitary sewer replacement, stormwater installation. Again, it was designed to allow future separation as we go up through with the phase 8. This particular one is Division 3D. That's multiple years out, probably 4 years out, and we'll be able to connect and truly separate it. Change order 1 consists of an increase of $16,497.35 for price adjustment for additional material, removal of additional rock for temp service, cold weather concrete, and unsuitable fill sewer trench material. That makes the new contract sum $873,777. Drish Construction, Fairfield, Iowa, has completed the above reference work according to the plans and specifications, and this will authorize payment and release of all retainage. One thing of note is this project started or was initiated early because of a water main break. Ottumwa Water and Hydro will reimburse us $118,263.06 for pavement replacement, or approximately 525 linear feet of street and subbase and a few other items.
Now Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 61, 2022, fixing date for a public hearing on the application to the Iowa Economic Development Authority for a community development block grant from the COVID-19 program. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 61, 2022.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I believe Zach's going to take this one.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. This is a resolution that's identical to one that you passed at the last meeting, except the dates have changed. This resolution would set a public hearing that was supposed to be tonight, and the notice didn't make it to the courier. This is for a CDBG grant application for a special round of COVID relief funding that applies to food service in this case, and would be funding with no local match, but we would administer the grant for $100,000 for commercial cooking equipment for Blessing Soup Kitchen. Allows them to serve more nutritious, wider variety of meals, and helps them move away from what they're doing now, which is using residential cooking equipment that's in poor repair.
Any questions from council for Zach? If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3190, 2022, amending the Code of Ordinances by changing the zoning classification on property located south of Romer Avenue with Meroge Avenue to the west and the city limits to the east from R2, two-family residential, to C1, neighborhood commercial in the city of Ottumwa, Wapello County, Iowa. Recommendation pass third consideration and adopt ordinance number 3190, 2022.
Do we have a motion?
I move to, yes, so moved.
Second.
I believe Zach's going to take this.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the third and final consideration for this ordinance. It would rezone the property described to allow the prospective buyer to operate a tumbling gym, construct and operate a tumbling gym that would use Romer Avenue for its entrance. Surrounding property that has access from Romer Avenue is also zoned for commercial use. And the current zoning was a result of it not having access to that frontage originally. We haven't received any comments in any of the previous hearings.
Anyone have any questions for Zach?
So we haven't received any comments at the city clerk's office or anything like that?
No objections have been received on this item either.
Awesome. Thank you.
If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is a time in our city council meeting where I'll ask the public if anyone has any topics that they'd like to bring to the council's attention that's not on tonight's agenda. Hearing none, I believe we have no petitions or communications. So at this point, the council will take a recess and they'll reconvene in room 108 for a closed session in about 15 minutes. Unless you want a longer break. Thank you.